Hi, guys. This is Erika with Having a Ball podcast. Thank you so much for clicking on the video and kind of hearing my first initial reactions, my first initial thoughts on Being the Ricardos that was just released yesterday in selected theaters and will be out on Amazon Prime December 21st. And when it does come out on Amazon Prime, my podcast partner and I, Ziva, will be doing a more in depth review, perhaps a more point by point, day by date, swapping of opinions really on the movie. So I'm really looking forward to that because I'm wondering if we're on the same page when it comes to our feelings towards the movie. So these are just my first initial individual thoughts on it that no one asked for. So here we are. Okay. When I first heard that this movie was being made initially, I was quite excited because I had heard that it was Cate Blanchett who was cast in the role of Lucille Ball. And I had seen what she did with the Katharine Hepburn role in The Aviator and was just blown away with that performance. I love what she did with it, the way she carried it, the way she spoke, her mannerisms, just the brassiness, the being a broad, the being a woman in a male dominated industry. And so I assumed that she'd be able to do the same with the Lucille Ball role. So I was really looking forward to seeing Cate Blanchett because I am a fan. But then I think there was scheduling conflicts or something, and the role was ultimately given to Nicole Kidman, which I'm also a fan of. Don't get me wrong. But I think that when we all heard that Nicole Kidman was cast in the Lucille Ball role, we may have all done a collective, huh, okay, tell me more. Because when we first hear of Lucille Ball, our minds immediately go to that of a comedic person, someone who can do a zany Lucy Ricardo, someone who can do silly movements with her face, someone who can do her hands just the way she beautifully did those movements when she spoke, when she acted, when she pulled off these, quirky moments in I Love Lucy. So we weren't sure, without knowing what the plot of the story was, we weren't really putting Nicole Kidman and comedy together. And so perhaps that's why we were all confused, or not confused, but just kind of like wondering, what was she going to do with this role? Because we don't really know Nicole Kidman to be funny or to make, films with comedic stories in it, more of a dramatic, actress, drama, romance, things like that. And when you hear the subject of the film, which is the Red Scare that Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz went through, then you know that, okay, it's a more serious topic. But nonetheless, you need to also bring the warmth that was Lucille Ball to the character. So I think that's why a lot of people were up in arms at first and skeptical and, kind of hesitant to celebrate the casting of the movie of Nicole Kidman, because the central focal point of this film was always going to be Lucy. Even Desi's there, but it's always going to be Lucy, down to her looks, down to the way she spoke, the way she handled the roles. And that's why we sort of had a high expectancy for this movie. And I must say that having left the movie yesterday, exactly what I thought was going to be became a reality. I was disappointed in the casting of the film even yesterday after having seen it. I love Lucille Ball very much. I have always, for years and years, I have always looked up to who she was as a person, as an actress. And, she was somebody who took comedy very seriously, someone who was stern in what she wanted, a perfectionist when necessary and when needed. And obviously it all paid off because every routine you watch on I Love Lucy was not a happy accident. It was all perfectly executed the way Lucille Ball wanted it to be perfectly executed, with, of course, the help at the helm were these three brilliant head writers. And so when I see Nicole Kidman, I don't feel that I'm looking at a single ounce of Lucille Ball. Now, having never met Lucy, having never been around her family, having not known anything other than the admiration from afar, watching interviews and seeing all, most of her movies and all of the episodes that she was in, that's the only reference points I have to know who Lucille Ball really was. But I don't think that Nicole Kidman brought that out. In fact, I think when I did my review of just the trailer or the teaser of the trailer, I mentioned that I really liked the Rachel York um, interpretation of Lucille Ball. I really did like that because it's hard to be her. She's a complex person to play. I mean, down to her character, her voice change from Lucy Ricardo to Lucille Ball. And so, when I saw her, Rachel York, the Broadway actress, playing her in a 2003 film called Lucy, I liked it. It was the closest that I've gotten to liking someone playing Lucy. And so watching Nicole Kidman, it was really a letdown, not because Nicole's not a top-notch actress, but because the role that she was given was perhaps a little too much for her. I don't feel that Lucille Ball was appreciated as to who she really was. She came across as cold, as bitchy, as stern and not listening to anybody. And I don't think that's who Lucille Ball really was. And in fact, she always gave credit to her writers. She gave credit to the people that were, part of her staff that were on her production team, to Desi. And so when I see that she is being portrayed as someone who just said my way or the highway, that's how it felt. I don't think that was fair. And I don't think it was very, if I were to sum it up, I'd ask, why was this movie made? Why was this movie necessary to begin with? I think we would all appreciate a nicely put together documentary, which is on its way via Amy Poehler and Ron Howard. And so I'm very excited and looking forward to that. But I don't know why this film in particular was made. I feel like the writer of the film, Aaron Sorkin, almost didn't like Lucy. Does that make sense? I feel like he didn't want to have her come across as a warm, loving, brilliant person that she was. It just came across as someone who was cold, and everyone around there, she kind of set the tone of a tense-filled workplace, and everyone around her just kind of replicated what she was doing. And during these 5 days that this movie takes place, there was a Red Scare, a pregnancy announcement, Desi Arnaz's cheating, all squished into a 5-day period. And I don't think that all three of those things were necessary. I mean, if just take the subject matter of the Red Scare, the communist topic, and I think you would have had quite the movie. But having Lucy lose her mind as to whether her husband is cheating, spoiler, he was, and getting a scene right from the Ethel and Fred fight episode, obsessively wanting to get it correct, down to waking everybody up at 2 a.m. and having them practice the dinner scene, to everyone questioning her marriage on set, to her announcing a pregnancy throughout all this. By the way, all of these things did happen, just not at the same time. And putting them all together like this did the movie no favors. From the very first opening scene, everybody was sort of on edge. Everybody was snapping at each other. Bill and Vivian didn't have one heartwarming or happy moment. I mean, we can get into the whole, Vivian and Bill didn't get along thing, sure, but this was just one snappy person after another. And it's unfortunate because from what you hear from interviews autobiographies and biographies, Lucy and Desi created a family in the I Love Lucy production team, in the Desilu productions. And this didn't come across that way. Everybody was snapping at each other. People were disrespecting one another on set. And everybody was just comfortable with disrespecting the big guns that were Lucy and Desi. Now, having said that, the good parts, the parts that I did enjoy were watching the sets. The sets that they used were just beautifully put together, replicated nicely. Everything was as it was on the I Love Lucy sets, and the kitchens and the club scenes in Ciro's nightclub. They were all beautifully, redone and recreated like they were in the 50s. So I did appreciate the attention to detail, Lucy's outfits and her wardrobe. Her hair was not exactly like it was. She had these big, curly, messy red curls that, were unmanageable, but made it just seem so pretty on top of her head. And that was missing from Nicole's version of Lucille Ball. I don't know where her lips went. I was missing a bit of the eyelashes and the eyebrows that were her iconic look. And so that was just me nitpicking a bit of the looks and things like that. Now, Javier Bardem's Desi Arnaz was good. Javier Bardem is a top-notch actor as well. He is a brilliant actor. I really do enjoy his films. If anybody's seen Vicky Cristina Barcelona, just that is Javier Bardem, same guy. But to play Desi Arnaz, especially a young Desi, when he first met Lucy, it was a little hard to buy. It was hard to not see Javier Bardem in the role and see Desi in front of you. But that's just, again, nitpicking. It was the casting was a little questionable at first because the accent was not exactly the same. And when they would do flashbacks to the days of them first meeting, if you were to ever see photos of Lucy and Desi, they both had kind of like baby faces, and we don't get that sense here. We get sort of an older version of Desi first meeting Lucy on the set of Too Many Girls. So again, small things, but they stand out if you are a fan of this couple. And having said that, you do have two sorts of different audiences going to watch this movie. And I realize the ones that are on the one end of the spectrum, which is, I've seen I Love Lucy a couple of times. I've chuckled. It's funny. I appreciate it, and it's on after school. Just appreciate the fact that a movie is being made at all. And then you have the people who know the different dates and when certain events took place, and attention to detail of Lucy and Desi and Vivian and Bill, and even the writers you're very familiar with, and even part of the production staff on Desilu, then this film will really bug you from beginning to end. And the only part that really I guess bothers me would be just a portrayal of Lucille Ball. And I've read many reviews lately saying that she did a brilliant job and that this is just knocked out of the park and Academy Awards are going to be thrown. And I'm just wondering where, because this was not Jamie Foxx's level of Ray Charles performance. Because when I watched Jamie Foxx, I didn't know when Ray Charles began and Jamie Foxx ended, or the other way around. But with this portrayal of Lucille Ball, with my level of admiration and knowledge of Lucy and everything I've ever seen, I did not see a single second of Lucille Ball in Nicole Kidman. When they changed the color to black and white, when she was doing some of the I Love Lucy scenes, sure, if you squint and you walk really fast, you'll see Lucy Ricardo. But the voice of Lucy Ricardo was a bit much. It was just, it was too much. It was way too exaggerated for who Lucy Ricardo was, or on screen. And that's just my take on what, I expected versus what I saw. Now, will any of them care what I think? Perhaps not, but they should, because there's a lot of big Lucille Ball fans who adore this woman, who have followed her career, who will, read any book that has to do with her. And she's been gone for quite some time. The show's been off the air for decades now. Well, not off the air, but I mean, stop filming for decades now. And here we are still doing movies, podcasts, documentaries. Lucy was big in 2021. So to end the year with a film that felt like it didn't do justice to the legacy or respect the legacy as it is a little disappointing. I did like J.K. Simmons' portrayal of Bill Frawley. I did like the Vivian Vance character. And I'm not sure that the flashbacks from the older versions of Jess Oppenheimer, Bob Carroll, and Madeline Pugh were necessary. There's enough information that you could have just written the characters without them flashing back. But again, nobody asked for my input on this film. But I was excited to watch it. Anything that has to do with Lucy, I'll watch, and I'll join in celebrating her legacy to keep it alive. But I don't think that this film was necessary. I don't feel like it was made with love. I don't think that it was thoroughly, researched as to who Lucy really was, just the events that took place around her. And it's unfortunate, but I look forward to watching it again and perhaps catching things I didn't the first time. And, the documentary that will be coming out next year, I look forward to, because those are where you get, the real facts, and you get interviews from people who were there real time, family members, and actual friends of Lucy and things like that. But, everybody has their own different take on a film like this. It's a really tricky thing when you take a film with someone who actually existed and is beloved as much as Lucille Ball, that someone will write under this video, what do you know? A self-absorbed woman with an opinion. It's just, we all have our own thoughts as to what we like when it comes to films being made, biopics on our favorite actors, actresses, sports figures, singers. So this is mine. And if I were to rate it, it would be perhaps a 6 out of 10, but on the scale of necessary, the way it was written, Aaron Sorkin's Lucille Ball was not a good one. It was disappointing, and I don't know where the praise of her portrayal is coming from. And also the aesthetics of the look of the film was very dark and very gloomy. And perhaps because of the subject matter and all the sad and tension-filled things that were happening in the film, were so dark. Even when they first met and there were love scenes and courtships going on between Lucy and Desi, it was still very dark and very cold feeling. There was no cheerfulness in this movie. And Lucy did, elicit a lot of cheerfulness for a lot of us. So with that, when my podcast partner and I do a little more in depth, perhaps after I watch it again, maybe there's something I missed, or Or maybe this is just the reality of the film. So, with that, I thank you for listening. Leave me your thoughts. Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss anything? Did I ramble too much? Let me know. Am I off? Am I way off? Um, let me know your thoughts. And have you seen it? Will you be watching it again when it streams? And will you be watching the documentary? Because I know I'm looking forward to that. So, thanks, guys.